Hi, I'm Jaymie.
And I'm Stacey.
And this is the Body Smart Podcast.
And today we are asking the important question, why don't more women lift weights?
Why don't they? Come on, Stacey.
Well,
Tell us all
I've
the
got
facts.
lots of reasons that the internet tells me that women don't lift weights. But I think if I go back to my own experience, it's all about what's familiar, I think. And so one of the stats that I found when I was researching the episode was 54% of gym memberships are actually women, but only 20% of women lift weights. So it's not like we're scared of exercising or we're scared of going to the gym, but we don't go and pick up the weights when we're there.
Yeah.
And I think a big part of that is what's in the media, what's culturally acceptable, what's normal, what we saw our mums do. And it's just a bit more familiar and a bit more comfortable to like go to a spin class or go to a Zumba class. And 76% of fitness class attendees are female, which I don't think would surprise anyone who's been to a class.
No, I don't think it would. You do tend to see that sort of ratio as well. And I would even say 20% of women lifting weights is probably like a number that's progressed as well, because I don't think it used to be a couple of percent, you know what I mean? If you were in the, at least when I used to go to gyms, 10, 15 years ago in the weight section, you'd be lucky to see one woman, versus now you do. I think I put up on a Instagram story like a year ago, and there was 5 squat racks in my gym, and like every one of them there was 5 women in there. I think there was 2 in one of them, and they were doing squats and deadlifts, and all the girls were doing squats or hip thrusts. So, and I was like, wow, like that's a real shift. You know what I mean? Like that didn't used to be the case, but still not as normal as we would like it to be, at least.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the really important thing that stood out to me when I was looking at this study was these women are making time to go to the gym. They're making time to prioritize their health, but they're not maybe getting the best out of that time that they could. Yeah.
Because there's a skill side of it as well. So, and, it's always like taking that step outside your comfort zone. So if you go to the gym, most people know how to turn a treadmill on, jump on a bike, jump on an elliptical, it maybe feels safe, familiar, comfortable. Maybe it's not by the weight section where there's people making noises and dropping weights and, can be a little bit intimidating in that sense. So you feel like you can go and you can get a workout in and do, 60 minutes or however long you do, but you don't have to take that step into basically learning and developing all these new skills, which is, to start lifting weights.
Yeah, and it's almost staying in the comfort zone, isn't it? Like we all know how to walk. Most of us know how to ride a bike. So it's just taking that into a different environment. You don't feel like everyone's looking at you and you're doing it wrong and people are judging you. And I think women are really harsh on themselves with stuff like that. They're so concerned about how they're perceived by others to go and put yourself out of your comfort zone, first off in a different environment, then doing an activity you don't really know if you're doing properly. Yeah. And then with all these other people you don't know, actually you can understand why that would be quite intimidating.
And I think that's where like a lot of the gym anxiety can come from for a lot of people, not, for everyone, to be honest, if you feel uncomfortable in that situation. But, just making sure you've always just got to weigh up the pros and cons, haven't you? Like if you keep doing what you've always done, you'll always, how does that quote go? You always get what you've always got. Yeah, something like that. And, it is, if you want to start to see, more changes in body composition, better changes in health, starting to do resistance training and lift weights is just you have to just see it as a skill. You have to embrace being a beginner and not overcomplicate it. You know what I mean? Just like pick a couple of exercises to begin with and just repeatedly do them and start to progress towards, more and more advanced exercises.
Yeah, and I think that's actually probably part of it as well, because if we look at this explosion in promoting working out on social media and in popular culture, it's all these snazzy exercises and all these complex looking things.
It's crazy.
You don't actually need to do that. Yeah. And I think there's probably a level of fear of like, am I doing it properly? Am I doing enough? Am I doing the right things? Whereas actually, like you said, you could just literally do 4 to 6 basic exercises and you could do the same ones every single week and you'd actually get amazing results. Yeah. But people don't know that if all they see is this variety of complex stuff online.
And that actually hinders people. So when I first started the gym, when I was about 14, 15, I got given a training program from the gym owner. And looking back, it was actually really good. But I'd done the same training program for about 14 months. Literally, so it was like a 20-minute run. Then we would do squat, bench press, row, pull down, fly, arms, and then 20 minutes of abs at the end. So that was it. So it took us like an hour and 20 minutes or something, which is a long workout, but when you're 14. After school, you've got a little bit more time than maybe most grown-ups. But I seen, you know, phenomenal results. I got stronger all the time. My technique got better. Why? Because I was going to the gym 4 or 5 times a week and doing the same movements. So it's the same as anything. If you're doing something where, you know, you feel a little bit off balance or you don't feel too confident in that exercise, if you're doing that a couple of times a week, every week for a couple of months, like even a year, you will progress so much faster through that movement. And you know, consistency in doing the basics and learning those basic movement patterns, or they don't need to be complex. You know, there's definitely, unfortunately, you know, algorithms on social media push all these like fancy new exercises, but, you know, bodies haven't changed in terms of our biomechanics at all. You know, people who were training in the 50s, 1950s to now, like, they're still doing the same basic movements. It's just, if you say, hey, do this exercise with a band and step to the left and look to the right and just do all weird stuff, it's like, oh, that must be, again, it's the same with the fad diets, that must be the thing that I can do to build a better body or get faster results. And it's unfortunately, but also fortunately, it's the basics do work.
And that is reassuring, because you don't have to constantly reinvent the wheel or have a whole new workout program every week that you need to think up. But equally, when you think about what many women have done before, and I was definitely this person, I went to like 2 gym classes a day and I loved it because it was variety and it was fun and it was different and there was music. It sounds quite boring.
In terms of what, doing the workout?
Doing, let's do my squat, let's do my chest press, let's do my push-up. Like, you know?
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's, you've got to look at it as that, doing some of these foundational basics. So you've got the big 6, which is a horizontal press and a vertical press, a horizontal pull and a vertical pull, and then you've got some sort of leg pressing movement, which could be like squat, lunge, leg press, and then a hip hinge. If you do those, a variation or just one variation of all 6 of those exercises, you will train your whole body. Now, if you do those 6 movements, you will build muscle in every area of your body. If you then go and do a class, combat, body pump, whatever, Zumba, whatever you want to do, you will perform better. You will be stronger in every movement because you've built muscle more in a more targeted way to be able to perform better in those workouts. And I'm all for classes and I'm all for group environments and everything else because it keeps people accountable. They book a time and they get to know people there. It builds a community. That's fantastic. But sometimes people will go to those classes and want to look a certain way as well in terms of physicality and those classes often aren't going to apply the level of progressive overload that you're going to maybe need to build the muscle to shape the body that you actually want.
So just to break down what Jamie's even talking about, progressive overload,
right.
It means making your workout a little bit harder each time. Mm-hmm. And I think we've all been guilty, or I definitely have been, in a spin class when they say, turn it up a quarter. I'm like, definitely turning it up a quarter.
Yeah.
Not touching it. And the same in like a body pump class, you know, you can just coast through and you can go through the motions. And that's in classes where there's even any resistance to play with.
Yeah.
If you're doing like a step class or a legs, bums and tums or a dance-based class, unless you just like go faster, there's very few ways to progressively overload each time, get harder each time, so you're getting fitter each time. And I think that's one of the big things that maybe classes like CrossFit or maybe F45 address, because you are trying to be better each time and you kind of keep track of what you did last time and you're trying to better against other people in the group as well. So I think that does explain a little bit of the explosion in that type of class. It kind of gives you the best of both. Yeah,
you get that accountability and, you know, community side of it, as well as getting that progressive side of it. So Steph is a complete, you know, she loved classes and, you know, done the weights because she knew it was important, but never really enjoyed it as much. And I was like, about 4 or 5 years ago, I was like, you'll love CrossFit. It's just like completely right up your alleyway. And she joined, and because she loves that community aspect and almost like being told what to do, likes to just be like, hey, like give me a program and I'll follow it. And you get that with those type of classes. So that's been something that's been like really enjoyable for her because it ticks both of those boxes. But yeah, if you're not that person and you maybe just prefer going to the gym classes and body pump and all that type of stuff, that's great. I would just add making sure that you're doing the 2 full body resistance sessions per week is just going to be so beneficial for your overall health.
Yeah, and I think it's important that we break that down because a lot of people go, well, like, great, it's good for my health, but actually right now my goals are this. And so why, like, let's just say your goals are weight loss. Why would you want to do that and not do an extra spin class?
So when you're losing weight, you want to maximize fat loss, not just weight loss. So you want you will lose weight, you will lose fat and muscle as you lose weight. Some people, if they've had more muscle in the past, can do the secret, which everyone would love to have, which is to lose fat and gain muscle at the same time. You can do that if you've had more muscle in the past because you have muscle memory. But the best way to maximize fat loss and not just weight loss is to make sure you're giving your body a reason to hold on to that muscle. So if you're consistently using, every muscle in your body as you're losing weight, your body will prioritize you losing fat over fat and muscle because the body has a reason to keep the muscle because it's being used on a consistent basis. So that's a huge reason behind weight loss. Then also, and it's not by loads, but muscle requires more energy. So more energy at rest and more energy while being moved. So having more muscle in your body makes you more, metabolically active. Like you're going to burn more calories. Your metabolism is faster because you've got more muscle. And it's also going to give your body more shape. So, when you lose weight and you lose some fat, you're going to start to see, that definition. Clients start to say like, oh, see my collarbone and I can see my triceps. I've never had arms like this. And the husband's saying something. So they start to see more of that visible muscle because fat's coming off and the fat sometimes is hiding that muscle that's already there. And you've also gave that muscle a reason to stay. So, there's so many benefits. And that's just to do with weight loss. The list of benefits for having muscle is much bigger than that.
Yeah. And I think actually you touched on a really important point there. When people want to lose weight, that's the name we give this transformation we want to achieve, but it's actually like feel better and perceive that I look better. And for a lot of people that doesn't just mean being skinny, it means looking fit and toned and having curves in the right places and your clothes sitting nicely on you. And a lot of that is based on having some muscle in the right places. I've got a friend who absolutely loves running. Like she'll just crack out a marathon on a Sunday, like just for fun.
Yeah.
But she's like, oh, why I run loads? Why is my bum so flat? And I'm like, well, you don't train your bum.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you do use your glutes when you run, but you don't actually progressively overload those muscles. And so she isn't by any means overweight, but she would want to change her body if she could, which she can. But she wouldn't say, oh, I want to lose weight. And I think a lot of the time people go into like a weight loss journey and all they're focused on is losing weight. But actually you could get to a body that weighs less, but doesn't actually look like what you want it to look like.
Yeah, which can almost be like quite demotivating. Some people like lose a lot of weight and they don't look the way they want. And yeah, you can lose weight just by being in a big calorie deficit, being determined, doing lots of cardio. Like you will create a big deficit and you can lose weight fast. But if you want to have more of that fit, athletic, strong, more aesthetically looking, pleasing body, then doing resistance training and progressive resistance training is going to give you that body shape and frame. So yeah, you said about the glutes there and having flat glutes, and that, the glute hype is definitely something that's become huge over the past couple of years. But like the amount of women that you see now that have got like muscle booties, like you can just tell like they're like, that's not a quote unquote natural sort of bum. They've just got like these really built glutes, and it's because they've progressively trained that muscle. I mean, the glutes are the biggest muscles in the body. They've trained that muscle with progressive overload and they've built muscle on that area. And, they've been able to, increase the size and change the shape of their body. And you can do that. It's, bodybuilding to an extent is very much like an art, and you're adding like clay to certain parts of your body. And you do that through repetitions in the gym or however you exercise, and then that's fueled by your nutrition and your recovery from your sleep. So like it can be done. You can make significant changes to your shape and your body by doing progressive training. Yeah,
and I think that's actually one of the really empowering things about lifting weights is we know you cannot spot reduce your body fat. You can't decide, oh, I want to have a flatter tummy or I want to have skinnier arms. You need to just lose body fat. Your body will decide where that goes. But you can choose where you want to sculpt and where you want to build. So actually, if you feel like your body doesn't look the way you want it to, rather than focusing on which bits you want to make smaller, it can be really empowering to say, well, actually, I want to focus on building my bum, or I want to have like really nice toned shoulders.
Yeah.
And you are in control of that. You can make what you want to see appear through hard work. So I feel like once you start seeing those results, it's almost like a self-perpetuating motivation then.
Yeah, and you then change the muscle to fat ratio in that area. So if you've got more of a muscular stomach, so like I have quite well developed abs, and even if I get like quite a higher body fat percentage, like say 15, 16%, normally most people, for guys, visible abs is like 8 to 12%. So I'm like a couple of percent higher. Like I should be quite smoothed over on my stomach, because I've got really like quite thick abs. I can see them at a higher body fat percentage because they still push through. So your shape, even at a higher body fat percentage, if you've got muscle, can look wildly different than not having muscle. And that's, again, gives you more of that shape, gives you that more of that defined look. And it's not always just about like body fat percentage and weight. Then it's actually like being strong, being fit, being healthy, being mobile.
Yeah, and I think that kind of comes back to where we started, which is it's not all about losing weight or how you look. And one of the things that we often find, if women have tried going to the gym to lose weight, and that's the purpose. Like I go to the gym to lose weight. I go and do an hour on the cross trainer, and then I get to my goal weight, and then I go back to normal life. There isn't any real great motivator to keep going on the cross trainer for an hour. It's pretty dull. I think we can all agree. No one's going to do that for the rest of their life every single day.
No.
However, if you can get into weightlifting and the motivation of seeing yourself progress, not physically, like actually seeing the numbers go up on what you lifted last week, or being able to do something you couldn't do 6 months ago, that in itself becomes a reason to keep going.
I mean, it's the same in everything in life. If we feel like we've plateaued, we don't feel like we're stood still. We feel like we're going backwards. So, if you have got a plan in place where you're progressively can see yourself getting a little bit faster each week, or a little bit stronger each week, or lifting that next pin on the machine, or putting an extra 1.25 kilos on a barbell, like it feels good. Like we feel like we're progressing and we're getting stronger and we're moving along. And yeah, sometimes there's just that lack of progression in jumping on the treadmill for 60 minutes. Unless you're, again, like, people who are jumping on the treadmill for 60 minutes, are you doing the same workout week in, week out, day in, day out? Or are you actually trying to run a bit faster, setting yourself a little bit of a challenge? Because when you are following those progressive plans, it gives you a reason to go back. It gives you a reason to keep showing up. And especially with resistance training, that can be done with every single exercise. So there always feels like there's a reason to keep progressing. Yeah,
and I think as well, you end up doing it for different reasons than your physique once you get into resistance training. And actually I put this in the email newsletter last week. When you find a real deep why of why you're turning up at the gym, that's when it becomes a lifelong habit. If your reason to turn up at the gym is I just need to burn 500 calories today, then once you've finished trying to lose weight, what's the purpose of going to the gym? But also, even when you're in the middle of losing weight, if that's the only reason to turn up, you can also be like, well, I could just eat less today, or I could just do more tomorrow. And so it becomes easy to skip and not be consistent. So when you really dig deep into your why of like, what's the actual purpose for me of working out and getting strong, that's when it shifts your relationship with exercise.
Yeah, definitely. And like, have you got a list of reasons why you would want to lift weights? Like
So for me, I find my body just feels better. Like I get less back pain, my pelvic floor's better, I'm less grumpy, and I feel like it's quite a meditative state for me. So I don't focus on anything else. I don't really look at my phone. I focus on every breath, on every rep, and it's just like a proper reset for me. And I do get that to some extent, maybe on a run, but not so much.
Not the same.
I feel like I need to have a bit of variety, which lifting is for me, whereas doing the same, like just running for 30 minutes is not that same variety to keep me engaged.
Yeah.
So it's about the headspace, but it's also about like the physical change in my body is almost instant. Like I can feel if I haven't been to the gym for 4 days, I start to get a bit achy, or I start to feel my symptoms coming back. And so it's like a good self-care basic that I know I need to do.
I know for a lot of the women that I speak to, actually, when you dig a bit deeper, people will sometimes actually feel a bit weird about being like vanity being a reason to train. And it's like, it doesn't actually matter what your reason is. Like if you lifting weights, you'll probably look better in clothes. You probably look even better without them, and it's, lifting weights, there's that progression to it. You feel strong. There's so many mums that I speak to now, and it's like, and this is always most women I speak to can already do this, but then I think this could be a separate point to get into. They're worried about lifting heavy or gaining too much weight, but they'll like walk in with like 3 shopping bags and a kid on one arm. You know what I mean? And it's like, they can still do that right now, which is probably like 45, 50 pounds of weight. But then when you start going to the gym, it's like, hey, that feels easy now. You're walking up the stairs with this type of stuff and it feels easier. Or there's just other parts where I don't think you realize how much different other like little parts of your life feel when you actually feel strong and mobile.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think it's something that I really notice because I've got like a limpet baby. He just only wants to be carried at all times. And he's 12 kilos.
Yeah.
So, you know, you're like trying to do the hoovering and you've also got one arm just like in a permanent grip of a 12-kilo kettlebell, basically.
Yeah.
If I didn't lift weights, that would feel super hard. I wouldn't
Yeah.
be able to do it. And I just have a very grumpy toddler at all times.
But also you're carrying a 12-kilo toddler, 25 pounds in one arm. And probably like a lot of other women are, but then we'll go to the gym and pick up a, 5-pound dumbbell.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like I've definitely found that always to be true, that men lift heavier than they can. They ego lift. they do. They,
Yes,
and,
they do.
And they end up injuring themselves because they're just like, I want to lift the heaviest weights in the gym. And near enough every woman that I've trained in person doesn't lift as heavy as they can. They're so much stronger than they believe they are. So, go in the gym and just testing the water a little bit and just being like, hey, if you can probably do something for like 10 to 12 reps, like comfortably, like an RP, I don't even want to get into RPE, but just like a comfortable, challenging sort of rep range is like 10 to 12 reps on whatever weight, you can definitely go heavier, like 100%. You don't have to do the 10 to 12, but try like 4 to 6 reps and really challenge yourself. And most of the time you'll be surprised that like that weight's actually lighter than you thought it was going to be.
Yeah, and actually something you said there I think is really helpful to break that gymtimidation.
Gymtimidation, yeah.
Of like, actually I probably am quite strong. Like just think about what you do in your daily life already. How heavy is your kid? Do you like shift the dog food out of the car into the garage?
Yeah.
Like there's probably stuff that you actually do already which shows you are strong. So if you go into the gym and you like treat it as a playing around, see what I'm capable of, rather than, I've got to do 10 reps of this and then 10 reps of that. It can actually be a lot less pressure. And I think there's a lot of perfectionism in women. So if we've got a program that says, right, you're going to do 3 sets of 10 of this and then 3 sets of 10 of that. If you can't do it with the weight you first picked up, there's no one who knows what was on that piece of paper, but you're still embarrassed.
Yeah.
So you've kind of got to just let that go. And I do this if I've had like a break from training. In my head, I want to go back and lift what I lifted 2 months ago. But I have to just go back in and be like, right, where am I at today? Okay, I can do what I did 2 months ago still on some things. But you know what? Some I'm going to have to go down. Some I can go up because I've been doing other things. And so going into it with that playful mind can help set aside some of the fear or anxiety that can prevent you from going into the gym in the first place.
Yeah, and not every day when you work out is your best day. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you can go to the gym and want to have a good workout, but you got 4 hours sleep last night and had a really hard day in work. So showing up probably was the most important part, but like scaling back what your intensity looks like that day and accepting that like you probably aren't going to be able to hit PBs or lift the same weights is fine. Like the most important part at a point like that is actually showing up and having a little bit more of an adaptable mindset with your workout, because the goal isn't to just lift weights or to exercise for the next couple of weeks or couple of months. It's to be able to do this forever. So letting go of that perfectionist mindset or all or nothing mentality around lifting weights or exercising, and accepting that life ebbs and flows and there's seasons, and giving yourself a bit of grace for like when you don't have the best workout, but the fact that you still showed up is much more important to go the distance.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's a little bit misunderstood of, if I show up and I don't do what I did last time or I don't push myself, it's not worth it. That's not true.
Yeah.
And a lot of strength is actually neurological. It's not physical strength. It's like, how well can your brain communicate with your muscle cells and tell them to do something? So the more you practice doing it, whether you use a heavy weight or not, you're still building that mind-muscle connection. If you don't push yourself every single session, but you show up and you do the reps, you're still building that element of strength. And I think that's missed, and people can beat themselves up about it if they have a slightly easier session or they don't achieve as much as they thought they should.
Yeah. I mean, I was 100% guilty for that in the past. Like in my younger days of training, that was always that mentality of like, go, got to do more. But like I used to get sick a lot more back then because I was just pushing my body to the limit all the time. And that was my expectation, matched with not great sleep and probably like too many pre-workouts. And it's like, what did I do? I just ran my body into the ground. As now being a little bit more mature and older and having a little bit more awareness, I can be like, I have been pushing the limits in other areas of my life and I don't feel great and I've not slept great. I'm not going to now go to the gym and be like, right, let's hit PBs and push myself over the limit, because it'll just, tax you out and run you into the ground a little bit.
Yeah, and when you take this approach to it, it actually becomes even more that kind of meditative connection with your body type part of your week, where if you go into a session seeing like, right, what am I capable of today? And you find maybe a little bit less than last week, that's you practicing listening to your body. And that is a skill that carries you through every part of life.
Yeah.
And so if that just becomes a regular part of your week where you go to the gym twice a week and you check in with your body and you respect what you find, that becomes the way of dealing with your body, and it just changes everything.
I completely agree. A lot of people who you do see who are, really fit and really healthy, they're so in tune to their bodies. Like I can tell, like the littlest thing feels off. I'm just like, my chest feels a bit weird, or like my stomach feels a little bit off, or I've got a pain here and that doesn't feel right. And you just don't even notice little day-to-day things. You become really in tune with your body. And I think a big part of that is from lifting weights and listening to your body and moving with those natural ebb and flows, which a lot of people probably just aren't aware. So just like, I feel like I have low energy today. And it's like, well, why? Or like my back hurts a little bit. Well, why? There's that like, you can diagnose yourself a little bit and like know how to push and pull again to just move with those ebbs and flows of life.
And talking of ebbs and flows, we have not mentioned a very big ebb and flow for women, or particularly pre-perimenopausal women. You are literally in a different body, like week 1 of your cycle to week 3. And so it is completely normal for your workouts to feel harder some days than others, because you've got different hormones fluctuating, you've got different energy levels. And so that's something as well that becomes quite a game changer for like the psychological aspect, when we have clients who realize, do you know what? Weeks 1 to 2 of my cycle, I feel really energized. I'm actually really strong. I'm going to smash my PBs during that period. And then the second half of my cycle, my energy's a bit lower, and that's okay. And I'm just going to use that to show up, to work on my muscle memory, to make sure I'm still putting in the reps. But that's going to be laying a foundation for week 1 and 2 next month. Yeah. So you don't see it as a waste.
Sorry, did you say menopause then, or menstrual cycle?
Pre-menopause.
Pre-menopause. Yeah, I mean,
as in like you have a menstrual cycle.
Right. Okay. Yeah. No, definitely. I mean, with so many of the women that I've coached and trained, and it's, mentioned in so many books that I've read around, women getting in tune with their menstrual cycle. It is actually one of the best things that women can do for their mental health, even for their relationships, getting that level, being that in tune with your menstrual cycle, knowing when that ebb and flow is for you, because it's not just a standard 28-day cycle for a lot of women. It can vary from, 24 to 35 days. And knowing how you feel on certain days in terms of energy levels, cognitive function, mood, appetite, performance, all of that, like the more in tune you are with your cycle and your body, the better you can, show up in work, show up in your workouts, even like letting your partner know, like, hey, like on day 22 to 25, like I tend to just not feel my best. So if you could just not be a dick that day or those days, or I can even give you a heads up, like that can be like a winning formula for a relationship as well. Steph uses the Clue app, and I'm like as in tune with her cycle as she is with hers, just because it's like we can work more as a team with knowing that. But yeah, definitely when it comes to training and working with your physiology against it, I think definitely something that I see women do more than guys is just mentally beat themselves up. Like it's having the ability to not judge yourself. That is what I would say. So like in that moment, instead of just like not knowing, like, why do I feel so tired today? Why is my workout like sucking so much? If you've got that awareness of like, oh, this is actually part of my physiology and part of my cycle, and this happens every single month, you have the ability to not judge yourself so harshly, because you're like, this is normal. But if you don't have that awareness around your cycle, then you're just like, I'm having an off day. What's wrong with me? Is it my diet? Is it this? Why am I trying so hard? Why does this suck? That person's making it look easy. So it gives you, again, a little bit more grace with yourself.
Yeah, and a big part of self-compassion is that humanizing element of every menstruating female out there has this. I just don't know because they don't tell me.
Yeah.
And knowing that that's what it is that's going on. So I think it's really important, if you are menstruating still, that you have that awareness. And if you are going through perimenopause and that cycle is all over the place, it doesn't mean that you can't still track your peaks and troughs in energy and see if you can figure out why that might be. But more importantly, as we were saying before, it doesn't even matter why. It's just seeing what you come across when you interrogate what's going on in your body and respecting that and working with where you're at that day, and then still being consistent with showing up.
Yeah, that's, again, the game you're trying to play is the game of life. So it's, if you wanna play that game and stay consistent forever, it's you've got to be able to give yourself that little bit of grace when things happen, and you can move with those natural ebbs and flows. Obviously, if you find you're constantly in a low, like I've always got low energy, workouts always feel difficult, I'm never progressing, like that's a sign of like, hey, you need to reflect back on like, why is this happening, and start to address maybe other parts of your health and wellness, whether that's your sleep, your nutrition, your emotional and stress management, whatever that looks like. But yeah, we all do. Like sometimes I have many days where I just don't want to work out, you know what I mean? And it's just like, some days are still good workouts once I get into them. Other days are, I can just feel this feels too hard, and I'm just like, I need to just dial it back a little bit. But there's one thing that's always consistent with the workouts is I never feel worse after doing it. I always feel better. Even if it's been a hard workout or I felt tired throughout the whole workout, I still always feel so much better after doing it.
Yeah. Although there's something that we haven't talked about, which is a common reason why women don't, or anybody don't, lift heavy weights, and it's not feeling better the day after when you can't walk.
Yeah.
Like, I cannot tell you the amount of clients that have been like, yeah, no, I would, but I know that I'm going to be in pain, so I don't want to lift weights. Whereas, going to Zumba or whatever, not so much. So what would you say about that?
I would say probably the first time you went to Zumba, if you've never been before, you probably have a few aches and pains and soreness in your hips and shoulders and stuff the next day. So your muscular skeleton is absolutely amazing, and can adapt so fast to changes and resistance that you're putting under yourself. The way I remember this is I started doing like building and landscaping when I was like 14, 15. And I remember going and like my hands, like the next day, and like when I got home, were just killing me. My forearms, my back, my shoulders. I was in so much pain. Day 2, agony. Day 3, agony. Day 4, it kind of went. I was like, what the hell? 4 days? I mean, it happened again when I'd done some like laboring jobs in the future. And I was like, wow, like it just made me realize like how fast your body can adapt and change. So I think this happens is, people go to the gym and they do this like killer leg workout that their friends gave them or they've seen on Instagram, and then next minute sitting on the toilet for the next 2 weeks is hurting. You know what I mean? It's just like getting out of bed, ow, ow, ow. That's not a smart way to train, and it's also not a great way of like hacking your psychology for you to keep showing up. You would be much better to go to the gym and be like, hey, I'm going to do 2 leg exercises for 8 reps per set, 3 sets for like 6 to 8 reps. And you might get up the next day and feel a little bit sore, not too much. I mean, it's like, okay, you're going to be like, oh, I'll go again. I mean, you just do a little bit more and a little bit more. And your muscular skeleton and body will adapt to that so much better. And that like really deep sore and achiness will go. But the goal, again, is consistency. If you do a leg workout on Monday and when you do it the following week on Wednesday, you got 9 days between, you are consistently just going to be in pain. So, making sure that you're doing each muscle group maybe like twice a week, and doing that on a consistent basis. And you don't need to go crazy to begin with. You will, the amount of delayed onset muscle soreness, DOMS, you will get will be wildly reduced.
Yeah. And I think that's, again, that all or nothing mentality.
Yeah.
Where I'm going to start going to the gym. Right. I need to do what this program says. Do you know what? If you go and do 1 set of everything that week and next week do 2 sets, that's cool. Build it up. I've got a friend who, like, she's exactly what you just described. She does it. She's like going to the gym. And she does a massive killer workout and then doesn't go for 2 weeks. And she can't walk, and she comes around. She's like, I need your foam roller. And then she does it again 2 weeks later. And she has this cycle. And she dreads it. She dreads going back to the gym because she's made it this painful thing that then just has negative implications for her rather than positive.
Yeah. I've got a funny story. I hope he doesn't mind me telling this. If not, we might have to cut it. Which is...
leave all names out. No one needs to know.
Well, no, because the name's going to be dropped. So if they get cut at this point... Luke, one of our coaches, used to train the Princess of Saudi Arabia. I think that was right. It is that, yeah. And I was like, how did you get a job doing that? Sounds absolutely wild. And she used to get personal trainers in for like a month, and they'd absolutely just beast her. And she'd be so sore and so tired. And literally after a month later, she'd be so exhausted, she'd just like sack them and then get the next one and then get the next one. So then that's what she expected is the norm, that all or nothing. And this is, someone who's got access to pretty much anything and everyone. So then Luke comes along and Luke's like, I'm not, like, you're going to have to trust me. I'm not going to train you like that. And just actually went in. She got up the next day and she was like, oh, actually, it's not that bad. And he's like, yeah, that's good. Yeah, we're going to go again. And then and then they ended up working together for years, 4 or 5 years. And again, just having that mentality of, this is not about just coming in and going 110% and then after a month getting burnt out, taking a couple of weeks off, sacking someone, getting a new trainer and starting again. It's about how can we consistently keep showing up, enjoy our, like, if it's too easy, we get bored. If it's too challenging, over time, we eventually give up because it's just too much stress on the body. You want to get into that like nice middle bit where it's like, it's hard, but it's not easy. And like, that's where we get into like a flow state and it becomes more enjoyable. And that's what he was able to do with her. And I'd say what we're able to do with clients. And that's why they're able to stand the test of time and keep showing up.
Yeah, and like you said, you get in a bit of a flow state and that's when it becomes something enjoyable in your week and not something you dread. It's kind of that, you're pushing yourself and it builds your confidence because you're pushing yourself each week. You're maybe achieving something new or you're lifting a little bit heavier. So you get that dopamine hit of growing, succeeding, but it isn't at a cost of pain the next day or the next 3 days, or feeling really, really exhausted as well. And I think that's something that maybe people have tried in the past and that's put them off. Yeah,
and if you work a very intense job to an extent where you have to show up cognitively and feel sharp and be on it, or you've got just a lot of other pressures at home, feeling like exhausted and in pain, it's just like it doesn't align with other parts of your life and you're just like, I can't do this, like I've got other priorities. So you almost need it not to be like that, and you need it to be more of that like flow state, challenging. You maybe feel a little bit sore the next day, but not so much that like every time you sit down or get up or get out the car or go in the toilet, it's just like, ow, 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 this is like horrible. Some people enjoy it. They do, but like, it's some people also get to the point where they enjoy it that much. They think like, if they're not sore, like I've not had a good workout, and that's not right either. If you're consistently getting sore, like weeks after consistently training, that's normally a clear sign that you're either overtraining or you're not eating or sleeping enough because your body's not able to recover, because it can and should be recovering from your workouts.
And I guess that again, it's rewriting the expectation of you don't need to be in pain to prove that it's been a good workout. You also don't need to be panting and sweating to be getting an effective resistance training workout. And I think for me, when I went from being like a class fanatic to lifting weights, that was one of the things that stopped me trying it in the first place, because I felt like I was working harder in a class. I was panting the whole way through. I could tell my heart rate was up. I was sweating like a dog. And then I went and did a gym session and I was like, well, this doesn't feel very hard. So how can it possibly be doing anything? But it does.
It does. Yeah, it definitely does. You don't, and I think if you've always done like cardiovascular workouts, then you always assume to an extent that like you should just be panting and sweating. But lifting weights doesn't have to be like that. It can be a case of you do a set and you wait around for 60 or 90 seconds. And some people again just don't like that. Like they maybe like don't want to go on the phone. And you can do things where you do supersets and do antagonistic muscle groups. So you go like front and back. So there are ways again of making. There's always a way of making a workout work for you, and that's the key. It's to find what works for you, and it's going to allow you to take those progressive steps.
Yeah, and I think that's a really cool thing with resistance training. It encompasses so many different modalities. Basically, as long as you're working with resistance against your body, you're doing it, and you're going to get all those benefits of building lean muscle mass, strengthening your bones, like lengthening your life, basically. You don't have to be doing supersets, doing CrossFit, sitting there for 60 seconds. You can literally build a workout that works for you as long as you are progressively testing your body against some form of resistance.
Yeah, it's always something to be aware of when somebody is like really dogmatic about an approach, like this is the most optimal way, or you must train like this. Like if most people looked at how I said I trained when I was 15 and done full body workouts for an hour and 20 minutes a day, 5 days a week, they'd say that's not optimal. And I still seen great progress and I enjoyed it. I was at a training partner and it was good. You know what I mean? Like it was at the time, is what I done. On paper, not the most optimal, but like it's not always about being the most optimal. It's about finding what you enjoy, what you can stay consistent with. They're gonna, and allows you to progress at the same time. So they're gonna matter so much more.
Yeah, and every goal that you've got, pretty much, there's a workout for that.
Yeah, and you can work out around pretty much every injury as well.
Yeah, and you can also do it without pretty much any equipment, like maybe one or two things. So it doesn't even need to be, if you've got that anxiety about going in a gym and all these grunting men around you and wondering what people are thinking, you don't even ever need to step foot in a gym.
Yeah, and that can be a really great place to start as well. If you want to go to the gym, but it just feels like too frightening or too scary, confidence just comes from feeling confident in what you're doing. So if you're an accountant. I always say bloody accountants, don't I? Jesus Christ, I need to change this up, right? So if you're whatever you do in your profession, if you feel confident in that and you go into a room and somebody asks you about a question around said profession that you're highly skilled and you feel confident in answering the questions because you have that skill set, that is where that confidence comes from. If you get thrown into a situation where you have no skills and are just expected to show up and be really good, like, yeah, you're like, whoa, I don't have a freaking clue what I'm doing, you know what I mean? It's so the same applies with going into a gym and doing all these resistance exercises. It's like, where do I start? There's so many machines. There's men grunting in the corner and dropping weights about. Like, this is quite a frightening, intimidating place to be. But it's also, you don't know what you're doing, so you don't have that confidence. And I've had so many clients now that we've worked out at home. They've done squats, lunges, dumbbell Romanian deadlifts. They've done push-ups, overhead press, and they've learned to train their whole body in an effective way with good form at home. And then they've just gone into the gym like 3-4 months later and done the same movements, maybe used some machines and just realized, oh, it's all the same. And I know what I'm doing and I feel confident in that. So all they've done is just change the environment from the home to the gym. Yeah, there's a little bit more equipment there and machines, but they felt confident because they learned some of the skills to begin with in the home. And then that allowed them to progress if they chose to into a gym. So yeah, I think that anytime confidence comes up or anxiety, sometimes I'll just look at it. It's like either you just need to maybe just develop some foundational skills first, and that'll give you the confidence to take that next step.
Yeah, and there is a really nice kind of ladder of resistance training where you can just start with body weight. If you are a beginner, that is actually quite a fair bit of resistance. Gravity is pretty strong.
Yeah.
So you can start with body weight and get a good workout. And as you build the skills to perform those exercises with good form and you build some strength, there's almost like a natural desire to like what's next. And then maybe you get some resistance bands or you get a TRX and you still stay at home. And then you're like, oh, now I kind of am curious what we can do at the gym. And so you go onto the machines in the gym because that feels safer. And then once you've got some confidence there, maybe you go in the free weight section there. And so it doesn't have to be like from zero to hero. There's a really nice step progression that you can follow. And along the way, there's YouTube, there's personal trainers, there's the staff in the gym. Like I say this all the time to clients. When I worked in a gym, standing there and cleaning stuff was like my idea of hell. If somebody came and asked me to help them with something, I was like, oh, thank God, yes, I will happily spend the next 20 minutes with you because this is what I want to do. Like, this is why I have this job, not to stand and clean the treadmill.
Yeah.
So if you're thinking, oh, I really want to ask for help, but I just don't want to bother them or I don't want to look stupid, they will not think that. Like, they're literally there in this industry because they want to help people. And let's be real, it doesn't actually pay that well to work in a gym. So you're not there to just get paid and go home. You're there because you want to help.
Yeah, definitely. And it's, like you just said, there's a very nice progressive way of getting there. And if you're unsure, it is just about getting curious, and putting the reps in, because I believe with all parts of your health, learning some of these skills, whether it's resistance training, whether it's part of your diet, whether it's your emotional management, the return on investment for learning these skills is lifelong, and there's not many things you can say that about. So, learning how to effectively move your body and do good, do proper resistance training. If you poured into that cup for 6-12 months, that's gonna benefit you for the rest of your life. So I just think it's such a good investment of your time to make. And yeah, there's gonna be a little bit of discomfort physically, maybe even approaching people in the gym to ask them, or even showing up, or learning to work out at home. But if you just keep going down that trajectory, it's such a great return for you.
It is, and it's never too late.
It's never too late, no.
My mother-in-law started going to the gym when she was she'd retired, so she was probably like 67. And to start with, we were like, oh, okay. Yeah. But now she will not miss it for the world. Like, she's built that, but she had never been a gym person before. Yeah. And so she started at 67. Anybody can start anytime. It's not like, oh, the older you get, the harder it is. In fact, I found a really cool study earlier that no matter how old you are, whether you're weak or whether you're strong, the strength gains, beginner strength gains are the same.
Yeah.
So you could be 75, you could be 80. The percentage increase is the same if you have the same training program. Obviously, I'm not suggesting that an 80-year-old woman goes and does some hip thrusts.
Yeah.
But the point is, wherever your starting point is, there's an entry level on that ladder, and there is a way that you can get all these benefits of becoming stronger.
Yeah. And on the flip side of that, you know, that's obviously really empowering. Like if you're whatever age you are, you can start making progressive steps. But on the flip side of that, if you're younger, like it is easier. Like you know what I mean? It just is easier. Like take advantage of that, lay that foundation, because then like, it's just going to be easier for the rest of your life. You're building healthy habits that will continue to compound, and it will just be something that becomes a part of what you do, who you are, how you identify, and that will just serve you, like we said, for the rest of your life. So if you are in your 20s or early 30s, you know, going and putting those reps in now is like we just said, such a great return.
Yeah, definitely. So all in all, if you are one of the women that we talked about, the 80% who don't lift weights currently, what would Jaymie's top tips be to just bite the bullet and get going?
Just start. You know what I mean? I think we're all overthinkers and procrastinators to a degree, and it's like, I need to get the perfect workout program, and I need to do this, I need to do that. It's just start. You know, full body training for beginners is by far like the best, and the reason that is you're giving yourself more reps. Like, so if you're gonna do like a kneeling push up or a box squat, if you're doing that 2 or 3 times a week, the rate at which you progress through that exercise is going to be phenomenally faster than doing a squat one week and then a lunge and this and that. So like keeping showing up consistently, doing the basics, keeping the same exercises until you feel proficient and confident in doing them. And yeah, just start, put the reps in for that next 6 to 12 months. I know it doesn't sound like a quick fix, but this isn't supposed to be. This is supposed to be something that you can do forever. And the benefits and the return will be amazing.
Yeah, and if you don't even know where to start, we've got some amazing resources. We've got a mini course which has got some workouts in. If you want to start at home, you can. If you want to start in the gym, you can. So if you do want to get those resources, then just drop us a message over on Instagram.